Chapter 5, Review Test B. Here is my answer key worked out. First thing I want to do for number 1 is I want to take the square root of both sides. I have an x plus 4 squared on the left side, so to get it by itself, I square root to get rid of the square. So I'm going to get x plus 4 is equal to, whenever I take a square root, I have to remember this is plus or minus 10. So I then have x plus 4 is equal to 10, or x plus 4 is equal to negative 10. To solve for x at this point, I subtract 4. You get x is equal to 6, or subtract 4. X is equal to negative 14. That's number 1. Number 2, what is being squared is not by itself. I have a times 2, so I want to divide by 2 first. I get x minus 7 squared is equal to 162 divided by 2 is 81. I want to get rid of the square now, so I square root. The square and the square root cancel, leaving x minus 7. The square root of 81 is either 9 or negative 9. So just like on number 1, there's 2 possible answers. So it's x minus 7 is equal to 9, or x minus 7 is equal to negative 9. If I add 7, I'm going to get that x is equal to 16. If over here I add 7, I'm going to get x is equal to negative 2. Number 3. Again, I need to get the whatever is being squared by itself. So I'm going to add 121 to both sides of the equal sign. I'm going to get x minus 9 squared is equal to 121. I'm going to square root both sides. I get x minus 9 is equal to plus or minus 11. So it is, again, x minus 9 is equal to 11, or x minus 9 is equal to negative 11. Add 9 to both sides. On this left side, I'm going to get x is equal to 20. If I add 9 here, I'm going to get x is equal to negative 2. And those are my 2 answers. That is 1, 2, and 3. The calculator we will need in a little while, so I just wanted to make sure I had it. We are recording. Let's go to the next problem. Solving quadratics by quadratic formula. As in the little note I wrote there in blue, I want to use the quadratic formula. So I need to make sure that for number 1, I know that a is 1, b is negative 2, and c is negative 8. So I can say x is equal to a negative 2, which is plus 2, plus or minus the square root of negative 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 8, all divided by 2 times 1. So this is going to be 2 plus or minus, let me use a different color. I'm going to go to green. 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 2 squared is 4. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4 times a negative 8 is a positive 32, all over 2. Keep this going over here. 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 plus 32 is 36. Divide by 2. So this is 2 plus or minus the square root of 36 is 6. Let me do that in a different color. So this is 2 plus or minus 6, because the square root of 36 is 6, over 2. Again, 2 possible answers. I need to have x is equal to 2 plus 6 divided by 2, or x is equal to 2 minus 6 divided by 2. The first one, 2 plus 6 is 8, divided by 2 is 4. Or 2 minus 6 is negative 4, divided by 2 is negative 2. Those are my two answers for number 1. Number 2. Number 2, let's go ahead and use red. Again, A is going to be 2. B is going to be negative 1. C is going to be negative 2. So I'm going to plug this into my quadratic formula. X is equal to negative 1 plus or minus the square root of negative 1 squared minus 4 times 2 times, which is my A, times C, which is negative 2. All over 2 times 2. Negative 1 is 1 plus or minus the square root of 1. Negative 4, let me use a different color. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8 times negative 2 is going to be positive 16 over 4. Simplify, I get 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 plus 16 is 17 over 4. Since this is saying in radical form an exact answer, I have my two exact answers. 1 plus the square root of 17 divided by 4. 1 minus the square root of 17 divided by 4. Okay. I have to do a little erasing so I can have room for number 3. All right. I need to move some of this over so I have room for number 4. I'm going to shrink this and move it over here. These are little notes to help you as you read along so you know which to do. Number 3, given an answer in decimal form. So I'm going to make sure I have a calculator available so I can do this number 3. Because that's what it tells me. I might need a calculator. So again, I need to say that A is going to be 2, B is going to be 10, C is going to be negative 3. Write out my quadratic formula. X is equal to negative B, so negative 10 plus or minus the square root of B squared, so that's 10 squared, minus 4 times A, which is 2, times C, which is negative 3. All divided by 2A, so 2 times 2. Simplify, that is, use a different color, negative 10 plus or minus the square root of 10 squared is 100. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8 times a negative 3 is a positive 24 divided by 4. Simplify it, and I'm going to get, hold on, I'm going to move the green over here so that I have some room over here. Negative 10 plus or minus the square root of 24. That's a lie. That's 100 plus 24, so that's the square root of 124 over 4. At this point, I'm going to pull up my handy-dandy calculator. I'm going to hit y equals. I'm not going to hit y equals. I'm going to hit second quit so I have a clear screen. I'm going to plug in negative 10 plus the square root of 124. I have to do that addition first, so I'm going to hit enter. Then I'm going to divide by 4. So I get 0.28. So x is equal to 0.28. That was the plus. Now I need to do the minus. So I need negative 10 minus the square root of 124. Again, hit enter. Now I can divide by the 4. And I get negative 5.28. So this is negative 5.28. That's my two answers for number 3. Number 4, I don't have it equal to 0 yet, so I have to add 2 to both sides. So I'm going to now have 4x squared minus 6x plus 2 is equal to 0. That then tells me that A is 4, B is negative 6, and C is positive 2. I plug it into my quadratic formula. X is equal to negative 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 6 squared minus 4 times A, which is 4, times C, which is 2, all over 2 times 4. This is then going to equal negative 6 is 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 6 squared is 36. Negative 4 times 4 is negative 16 times 2 is negative 32 all over 8. So this is going to be 6 plus or minus the square root of 4 over 8. So this is 6 plus or minus the square root of 4 is 2 over 8. So 6 plus 2 divide by 8. 6 plus 2 is 8. Divide by 8 is 1. 6 minus 2 is 2. I did that wrong, excuse me. I'm ahead of myself. 6 minus 2 is 4. Divide by 8 is 4 over 8, or 1/2. So those are my two answers for number 4. Solve quadratics by any method. So the little note that I had here in blue, if something is square, solve by inverse operation. If there's no x term, solve by square roots. Try factoring or use the quadratic formula. I might have to jump to a different page on some of these, so I'm going to pull up this other little camera. So if I need to jump to a second page, I can jump to a second page. Let's see what I can do here. Solve each of these using the most appropriate method, factoring, square roots, inverse operations, or quadratic formula. So number 1, 0 equals x squared minus 4x minus 12. The first thing you want to try, I notice that there's no quantity squared, there's no parentheses squared, so I'm not going to use inverse operations. I know there is an x term, so I can't just square root, so I want to try factoring. And since I'm going to use basic factoring, what multiplies to be negative 12 and adds to be negative 4. So what multiplies to be negative 12 and adds to be negative 4? I'm coming up with negative 6 and positive 2. So then my factors are going to be x minus 6 times x plus 2, and that's equal to 0. If I were to FOIL that out, I would get x squared minus 4x minus 12. Now remember, to solve this type of thing, you have to say x minus 6 is equal to 0. So then that x is equal to 6. I would have to say x plus 2 is equal to 0. Subtract 2 from both sides, so x is equal to negative 2. So 6 and negative 2 are my two answers. Number 2, we're going to do here in black and possibly red. This is a quantity squared. So to solve a quantity squared, I want to square root both sides. So that means I'm going to get x plus 3. I don't need the parentheses, so let me back up. I'm square rooting. There's nothing in multiplied or added, so I can square root, and I get x plus 3 is equal to, whenever you square root, it's plus or minus, and the square root of 64 is 8. So again, there's two possible answers. X plus 3 is equal to 8, or x plus 3 is equal to negative 8. I'm going to subtract 3, so I get x is equal to 5, or if I subtract 3, I'm going to get x is equal to negative 11. So 5 and negative 11 are my two possible answers. All right, number 3. On this one, I do not have an x term. I have an x squared term, but I do not have an x term. So I'm going to add 17 to both sides. Let's try that again. Add 17 to both sides. I'm trying to get the x squared by itself. So I get 4x squared is equal to 100. I need to divide by 4. I get x squared is equal to 25. I'm going to square root both sides. I get x is equal to plus or minus 5. Number 4. Again, I could try to factor this. I could try to factor this, what would multiply to be negative 10 and add to be negative 10. I don't know anything that does. So I'm going to use the quadratic formula. There's not enough room here to use the quadratic formula. So I'm going to take number 4 to a separate page. So number 4. Quadratic formula, A is 2. B is negative 10. C is negative 5. So I'm going to say x is equal to negative 10 plus or minus the square root of negative 10 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 5. All over 2 times 2. It's the ugliest 10 I've ever drawn. That's a negative 10. All right. So x is equal to negative 10 is 10, plus or minus the square root of negative 10 squared is 100. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8, times a negative 5 is going to be plus 40, all over 4. 2 times 2 is 4. So this is 10 plus or minus the square root of 140 divided by 4. Now I'm going to go back. And my instructions tell me to give an exact answer. That means in the square root, I need to simplify as best I can. So I'm going to step over to the side and say 10 plus or minus the square root of. If I have 140, one perfect square that divides into it, or the perfect square that divides into it, is 4. 4 times 35 is 140. So this is a square root of 4 times the square root of 35 over 4. So this is 10 plus or minus. The square root of 4 is 2, square root 35 over 4. And I'm going to continue along. So this is now, this is an even number, this is an even number, this is an even number. So I'm going to pull a 2 out of my 10 plus. So I divide 10 by 2 and I'm going to get 5. Divide 2 by 2 and I'm going to get just the square root of 35. And because I'm factoring out that 2, divide by 4, that 2 and that 4 reduce, and I get 5 plus or minus the square root of 35 over 2. Those are my two exact answers. So that is my answer to number 4. Let's keep going. Okay, so now we are on number 5. Now down here I'm going to have a little more room. So 2, 5, and 12. Okay, I'm going to move this just a little bit. Have a little more room. Okay. I could use the quadratic formula. I'm going to see if I can factor this. 2 times 12 is negative 24. 2 times negative 12 is negative 24. And 5. What multiplies with negative 24 and adds to be 5? I'm getting that to be 8 and negative 3. So this is California method. So this is 2x over 8. 2x over negative 3. This one will reduce to x over 4, which is the factor x plus 4. This one doesn't reduce, so this is the factor 2x minus 3, and I still have this equal to 0. So this is going to be x plus 4 is equal to 0. Subtract 4. X is equal to negative 4. This is going to be 2x minus 3 is equal to 0. Add 3 to both sides. 2x is equal to 3. Divide by 2. X is equal to 3 halves. One answer, two answers. That's number 5. Number 6. I might be able to do this using factoring, but the first thing I would have to do is I am going to divide everything by a negative 1. So I get 0 is equal to, as long as I divide the left side and the right side by the same thing, I don't change anything. 0 is equal to x squared minus x minus 30. And the question is, what multiplies to be negative 30 and adds to be negative 1? I'm believing that to be negative 6. Let's use a different color. Negative 6 and 5. So this is x minus 6 times x plus 5 is equal to 0. If I FOIL that out, I'd get 6 squared minus x minus 30. So x minus 6 is equal to 0, so x is equal to positive 6. X plus 5 is equal to 0, so x is equal to negative 5. Those are my two answers. Number 7. So on number 7, I'm going to again try factoring. What multiplies to be negative 48 and adds to be negative 22. What I come up with are the numbers negative 24 and positive 2. So I'm going to then say that x times negative 24 times x plus 2 is equal to 0. How do I find those numbers so quickly, so easily? Remember the trick that I gave you in the calculator? That trick was what multiplies to be negative 48 would be to go to y equals, type in 48, divide by x, hit second graph to go to the table. My factors are 1 and 48, which cannot give me 22, 2 and 24, which can give me 22, 3 and 16, 4 and 12. This is how I get my factors, 6 and 8, then 8 and 6. That's how I found my factors, using my calculator. So I can come over here and say that x, add 24, x is equal to 24, or x is equal to negative 2. Lastly, number 8. Number 8. I need to find what x is. There is no x term, so I'm going to add 5. I get 2x squared is equal to 32. Divide by 2. X squared is equal to 16. The x squared is by itself, so I'm going to square root both sides. X is equal to plus or minus 4. Those are my 8 problems of Solve Any Way. Let's go to the next page. All right. Change forms of quadratics. To polynomial, use algebra to get rid of the square, the parentheses, and the exponents. To factored, factor has to be in factored form. It has to be in polynomial form to factor. To vertex, use a calculator to calculate the min or max for the h and the k. So here we go. Change each of these into the specified form. I have, I want this into polynomial form. So y minus 2 is equal to 2 times, I'm going to think of this as x plus 5 times x plus 5. If I FOIL that, I'm going to get y minus 2 is equal to 2 times x squared plus 5x is plus 10x plus 25. Distribute the 2. Y minus 2 is equal to 2x squared plus 20x plus 50. Now I'm going to add the 2. That's over this minus 2. I'm going to add 2. So I get y is equal to 2x squared plus 20x plus 52. That's in polynomial form. Ax squared plus bx plus c. Letter B, 2x squared plus 13x plus 21 into factored form. So I want to factor this. So the question is, what multiplies to be a times c? 2 times 21 is 42 and adds to be 13. So I pull up my handy dandy little calculator. I'm going to try this little, and so what multiplies to be 42 divide by x. I'm going to go to my table. So let's see, 1 and 42 will not give me 13. 2 and 21 can't give me 13. 3 and 14 can't give me 13. 4 and 10, well, that doesn't work. This doesn't work. 6 and 7 will give me 13. So I'm going to have a positive 6 and a positive 7. This is California method. So it's 2x ax over 6. 2x ax over 7. This first one reduces to x over 3. The second one doesn't reduce, 2x over 7. So my factors are x plus 3 times 2x plus 7. That is factored. If I FOIL that out, I'm going to get y equals 2x squared plus 13x plus 21. That's factored form. Now here I want polynomial form. Polynomial form means to get rid of all the parentheses. So I'm going to FOIL first. Y is equal to negative 4 times. First I get x squared. Outer I get x. Inner I get negative 2x, which is negative x. Last I'm going to get negative 2. Still have some parentheses. Distribute the negative 4. Y is equal to negative 4x squared. Negative 4 times negative x is a positive 4x. Negative 4 times a negative 2 is a positive 8. This is in polynomial form. Letter D, vertex form. The only way I know how to do vertex form is in the calculator. Yes, I could find the middle of my two roots, but let's use my calculator. I'm going to hit y equals. I'm going to plug in my equation. X plus 2 times x minus 4. I'm going to hit zoom 6 to get a generic window. I need to find this minimum to find my h and my k. So I go back. I'm going to hit second trace to go to the calc menu. Number 3 is minimum. I'm going to hit enter. Left bound, I'm going to get my little blinky spider to the left of my minimum and hit enter. I'm going to move to the right of my minimum with my blinky spider and hit enter twice. And I get 1. I can't see what that number is because of the blinky spider. So I'm going to change my window a little bit, make my y's go lower. Let's make this go to negative 15. I'm going to have to do that again, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Second trace, number 3 is minimum. Left, I'm going to hit enter, go to the right, hit enter, enter, and I get 1, negative 9. 0.999999996 is really close enough to 1. We're going to call it 1, negative 9. So that tells me that my HK is 1, negative 9. So vertex form is y equals a x minus h squared plus k. The a here is going to be the same as the a here. The a on D is 1, so y is equal to 1. x minus h is x minus 1 squared plus a negative 9 or minus 9. That's vertex form. Letter E. I want this into factored form, so I have to get it into polynomial form, and then I have to factor it. So I'm going to first FOIL out, so y plus 8 is equal to 2 times x minus 1 squared, so x minus 1 times x minus 1. So this is y plus 8 is equal to 2 times x squared minus 2x plus 1. So then I have to distribute the 2. Y plus 8 is equal to 2x squared minus 4x plus 2. Subtract 8 from both sides. I'm going to get y is equal to 2x squared minus 4x. If I subtract 8, I'm going to get negative 6. Now I need to factor. So now I'm going to take this new equation, y is equal to 2x squared minus 4x minus 6. I'm going to take out my greatest common factor of 2 and get x squared minus 2x minus 3. Now I'm going to use basic factoring. What multiplies to be negative 3 and adds to be negative 2? I come up with the two numbers negative 3 and positive 1. So this is y is equal to 2 times x minus 3 times x plus 1. That is factored form. Letter F, vertex form. Again, pull out your handy dandy calculator. Go to y equals, plug in x squared minus 12x plus 7. Delete anything that else is there. X squared minus 12x plus 7. Zoom 6. Okay, I need to change my window just a little bit. Squared minus 12x plus 7. Let's make a larger x. Let's make my x's go to 20. And let's make my y's go to 20. I need to go a lot further down. So, okay, I need to make my y minimum. Let's make this negative 30. Now I can see that bottom point. I'm going to lower it even more. Instead of negative 30, let's go to negative 50. That's my y minimum. So now I have a good sight on that minimum. I'm going to hit second trace to go to my calc menu. I'm going to hit number 3 for minimum. My left bound, I'm going to hit enter. Go take my blinky spider to the right and hit enter twice. And I get 5.99999 and negative 29. So that tells me that my minimum, my h and my k, is 6, negative 29. Negative 29. That's my h and my k. Again, a for f is 1. So a for vertex form is 1. So I have y is equal to 1, x minus 6 squared plus a negative 29, which is minus 29. There's my vertex form. All right, next page. A toy rocket blasts off from the ground and peaks in 4 seconds at 256 feet. Assume the relationship between height and time is quadratic and let a be negative 16. Because it peaks, that tells me I'm going to use vertex form. Y is equal to a x minus h squared plus k. I'm told that my a is negative 16. My h is this 4 seconds. And my k is this 256 feet. That's what I need to know. Write a function in vertex form. So this is y is equal to negative 16 x minus 4 squared plus 256. The word peak tells me that that is going to be vertex form. Now, I know it asks for factored form next. We're going to do polynomial form next. I'm going to multiply this out. I'm going to have y is equal to negative 16 times x minus 4 squared is going to be x squared minus 8x plus 16, and then that's plus 256. Distribute the negative 16 through. Y is equal to negative 16x squared plus 16 times 8 is going to be a positive 128x. 16 times 16 is going to be a negative, because it's a negative 16 times 16, a negative 256. But then I have this blue positive 256. So these cancel. And so my polynomial form is y is equal to negative 16x squared plus 128x. Now that I have polynomial form, I can factor it. But because these two canceled, I'm going to go ahead and just have to take out a greatest common factor. My greatest common factor of negative 16x squared and a positive 128x, I believe, is going to be negative 16x, which leaves me x minus 8. That is factored form. Sketch the graph. Well, remember, factored form gives me my zeros, my roots. That means negative 16x is equal to 0. So x is equal to 0. That also means that x minus 8 is equal to 0 at 8. X is equal to 8. So when I sketch this, this being time, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's going to take off at 0, 0. That's what this tells me. And it's going to hit the ground again at 0 or 8, 0. So it's going to hit the ground here. It's going to peak at 4, 256. So I'm going to go ahead and count this by 25s. So this is 100, 200, 300. So 4, 256 will be right about there. And my parabola is going to do something like that. So my x minimum, I said, was 0. My x maximum, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm counting by ones. My y minimum is 0. My y maximum is 30. I'm counting those by 25s. When does the rocket hit the ground? Well, that's at 8 seconds. Why? This is my x, my other x-intercept. Find the coordinates of the vertex and the x-intercept. I already did that. My x-intercepts were 0, 0, like here, and 0, 8, like here, and my vertex was given to me as 4, 256. How high was the rocket 2 seconds after launch? Show how you found this. Okay, I need to pick one of these three equations. I don't care which. I'm going to pull out my handy-dandy calculator. I'm going to make my window match the window that I have here. So I'm going to go from 0 to 12. I'm going to count by ones. I'm going to go from 0 to 300, and I'm counting by 25s. My equation is going to be, again, any of these would work. The original one, negative 16 times x minus 4 quantity squared plus 256. Graph that. There's my graph. I want to know 2 seconds. So when was the rocket 2 seconds high? There's a couple of ways of doing this. One way is to hit second trace to go to the calc menu. Number 1 is an x value. I want that to be 2, and I get 192 feet. So this is 192 feet. Okay. Show how you found this. Well, I just showed you using the calculator. I used value on my calculator. Okay, that's not what I wanted. This is what I want right here. Okay, when will the rocket again be the same height as the answer in G? When am I going to get to 192 again? Well, I'm going to hit y equals, go down to y2, and plug in 192 as my y. I'm going to graph, and I need to find this second intersection point. So I'm going to hit second trace. Number 5 is intersection. At that point, I'm going to hit 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to get to again at 6 seconds. All right, I'm going to stop the video. Well, I'm going to keep going. Reflections, reflections, reflections. I've got 2 more pages of this. I'm going to stop now. I will finish the rest of this Monday morning so that you can see more of this on Monday. Have a good day.